Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Fine.
Very well.
Thank you. You guys
Good to
are all
have
here.
everybody on. Good to have everybody on board.
Yeah, except for Kathy, but we'll have her join as soon as she can. So,
Yeah.
everybody is here for the 80s dance music song party, right?
Okay. I missed
Yeah.
my costume time.
Yeah.
Making sure you're at the right party. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. And can you all see that all right?
Yes.
Do that. Okay, super. Well, thank you for coming tonight. We are super excited for this new book, The Bridles of Armageddon, second edition from Keith Madsen. And we are going to have a pretty interesting agenda today. First of all, we'll go through introductions, who Keith is, who I am, and we'll go directly into author chats. We have a few trivia questions with some prizes tonight. And there's a special song that we're also going to show for you as well that is sung by Brandon, who is Keith's son, and Alicia, who is the daughter-in-law. And you can see there, we'll continue our chat and our trivia. We've got a couple of readings actually from Keith on several sections of the book, and then we'll go into the prizes and Q&A. Sounds good?
Mhm.
All right,
Let's do it.
let's do it. Okay, and by the way, when it comes to the trivia questions, the fastest fingers with the right answer wins, okay? So get your fingers ready on the keyboard when we have a trivia question. And if you get the question right and you're the fastest, you win that prize.
Full disclosure, that's not a recent picture.
Well, if somebody would send me their headshot,
I like that picture better.
I'll do a screenshot of you later and I'll use that later. Well, without further ado, this is Keith Madsen's show, and he writes fiction that combines adventure and romance with stories which dare to think the world can be better than it is. In his writing, the characters are real, but at the same time, they dare to transcend the reality. Keith believes that fiction, to be truly inspirational, must first acknowledge the hard realities of life. In his books, as in life, people die, not just the evil people, the ones brought into being seemingly for the sole purpose of dying and validating a world of justice. But the good people as well, children with cancer, kindly grandpas, leaders fighting crime and injustice. Let me admit somebody, Leanne Ford. The inspirational aspect comes not from such deaths that left as cold realities, but as they become seeds which lead to the renewal of life and resurrection. Keith has published 3 novels, The Sons and Daughters of Toussaint, published by Adelaide Publishing, New York, 2018. Searching for Eden with Quillhawk Publishing in Edmond, Oklahoma in 2021. And The Bridles of Armageddon, also with Quillhawk in Edmond, Oklahoma, 2023. Keith has one other novel coming, I believe, A Garden in Winter. He has also written short stories that have been published in Short Story America, Mobius, A Journal of Social Change, Talking River, and Adelaide. So welcome, Keith, to your virtual launch party.
All right.
Woohoo!
So I might add that also have a short story in Distant Flickers.
That is right.
Telltale authors anthology of short stories. So yes, very much so.
Yes, that just came
Okay,
out.
now I get to introduce Amy. And she is a Vietnam War survivor and congenital heart defect warrior. And she is a founder of Quillhawk Publishing. It's a woman-owned Asian American company that helps writers indie publish their books while amplifying diverse voices through storytelling. And also Quillhawk is a combination of a writer's quill and the Seattle Seahawks, of whom she is a big fan, by the way. Okay. Amy grew up in Seattle and has a successful career at Microsoft and T-Mobile before pivoting to become a writer, publisher, and speaker. She is the award-winning author of the Snow trilogy, Snow in Vietnam, Snow in Seattle, and Snow's Kitchen. She's currently working on her Phoenix series, 3 books showcasing the resilience of people who survived deep trauma. Amy co-founded the Heart Community Collection, a resource for the congenital heart defect community, and sits on the board of the Vietnamese Boat People Organization. She also serves as an officer for 2 writing organizations in Oklahoma and volunteers for the Pacific Northwest Writers Association. She's not writing or volunteering. Amy is experimenting in the kitchen or screaming at the TV while watching NFL games, UFC fights, or Formula One events. Oh my gosh. Amy has authored several books and is part of 3 anthologies coming later this year: the Snow Trilogy, Asian Women Trailblazers Who Boss Up, and the Copper Phoenix, coming in March or April of this year.
Aha, yay. Thank
She's
you.
quite a woman.
Thank you. Well, let's get right into it. First of all, Keith, I want to know what is so intriguing about your book. What's it about?
Well, I think that the big thing about it is that somehow that word Armageddon catches people, because everybody, whether regardless of your religious or political perspective, hear that word and it just reminds you of the dangers that happen as we go forward into history. Maybe it's the movies that have been about it. I remember that movie from 1998. Did you see that, Amy, or any of the rest of you? The 1980 movie Armageddon, which was had the thing coming in from outer space, and they got to blow it up, and it had Bruce Willis and Liv Tyler, and who else was that? That was
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, that's right. So, people hear those movies, and maybe that's what keys them. Amy, did you see that movie?
I did, and I absolutely loved it, actually, especially the soundtrack. So
Yeah. The soundtrack was great. And so really right off the bat, let's use that to get into our first trivia question.
Okay.
So a theme for a free copy of the Bridles of Armageddon, what band was the female lead related to?
Aerosmith.
Oh, you gotta type it, man.
Where? Type it where? I'm sorry. Do I type it?
Click to add notes.
Oh,
There's a
okay.
chat.
Oh, where?
Well,
Bottom of your screen, click to add notes. Who are you saying?
Aerosmith.
Oh, like I would know. Don't know.
yeah, Steve Tyler and
Steve Tyler.
Aerosmith. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
That's right. So, maybe it's that connection that people have. I know there's a movie out last year, actually more recent. It was called Force of Impact Armageddon. And so they have all these movies that come out with that. And locally, we had 5 feet of snow this year before winter started.
Wow,
they
where
were-
are you at?
Wenatchee, Washington.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
And
you're
they
not too
call-
far away from me.
They called it Snowmageddon.
Yes.
So, those are really a little more humorous use of the word, but but more serious and more important. President Biden used the word here back in October when he said that we were closer to nuclear Armageddon than perhaps we'd ever been.
Yeah, I think we're only 90 seconds away from what is that clock called?
Atomic.
Is it was it you speaking, Jim?
The atomic, I think.
Yeah,
Not
Yeah.
the atomic clock, the
nuclear clock or something like that.
the disaster clock. How close
Yeah.
are we to I think we're only about 90 seconds away right now.
Well, when people see things like that and other things that we see on the news, people get very worried about the world we live in. I mean, don't they?
Yeah.
It gets scary sometimes. And so when you get in that kind of situation, Well, what do you do? I mean, basically two people can react in two different ways. One is that they retreat into fantasy, watching cat videos and old movies and old TV series from the 50s and 60s. And my wife just reacted to cat videos. No, but that's one way to do it. You retreat into fantasy. Another way is to just have an anxiety attack and lose sleep and start yelling at the TV news. And people do both things. And so it becomes very scary one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. For me though, I don't do cat videos, but I will certainly retreat to sports, anything that has to do with football, UFC, Formula One.
Yeah.
Always
right.
yelling at something.
That's right. I do like some old TV series shows. We like to watch Cheers, where everybody knows your name. And that people know our troubles are all the same. Isn't that nice? I like to watch that. You get kind of immersed in that. I like the old Dick Van Dyke series. I enjoy watching him trip over the ottoman so many times. It reminds me of me. I trip over things. But that's a period of time when it seemed like the biggest problems were just what you have within one family, and there's no dangers out there anywhere. And so I get wrapped up in those kind of escapes. And yes, you need to do that sometimes. I wonder about the rest of the people. What kind of things do you do to take a little fantasy vacation?
I
Right.
read.
You read?
Oh yeah. I have some favorite post-apocalyptic novels or some favorite science fiction novels that I'll read, or if every now and then I get into a bent and I'll just go off on some really silly Regency novels, and weeks later I'll try to read them again and think, how could I even begin to read this? It's so silly. But yeah, I read.
What do you read now, Tamara?
I just started a book called, hang on, Elder something or other. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. It is, Elder Race.
Huh.
It purported to have some magic and, a young woman who has to do a quest. And it turns out that this elder that she had to find is an anthropologist who is watching one of the races that was seeded by Earth. So it's actually sci-fi 1,000 years into the future. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. What about the others? What little fantasy retreats do you like to take?
Me?
Anybody else?
Oh, okay.
I write.
Writing?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because I like the world I create better than this one.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So that's the privilege of being a writer. You can create
That's right.
a little bit better world.
Got a lot of writers in the house.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well,
Well,
am I the only reader in the house?
Oh, I read.
Oh, no, we read.
Oh, yeah, I read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all writers are readers, but not all
yeah,
readers are
you gotta
writers.
be. You gotta be.
So I'm the only non-writer in the house.
As of now, you might be
Okay.
writing something later. Who knows?
Well,
I write
let's see.
reviews.
That's
Ann was on just a second ago, and I don't know if she lost contact or what, but she's not a writer, but I don't know anybody else. But the thing about fantasy is, getting a little fantasy retreat is everybody's got to do that. You need to do that. You'll go crazy if you don't do that.
Mhm.
But there's a difference between having fantasy retreats, getting away and having that kind of soothe your soul for a little bit, and to permanently invest yourself in escapism. one of my old psychology professors used to say it this way, defining the difference between a neurotic and a psychotic. He said that a neurotic is somebody who builds castles in the air, and a psychotic is someone who lives in them. And I think there's a difference between building our little fantasy castles and living in them and separating ourselves from the world. So, that's why I think we need to be able to have a third way, to find a third way. And that is to be able to envision hope. I believe that if you can look a troubled world in the eye and see the hope, you're halfway there. So that's what I think we are called to do. And I think that's what my book can help people do, is to be able to see the hope beyond all the turmoil and all the fighting and things that are happening.
Absolutely. Might be a good time now to play your book trailer. What do you think?
Okay. I think that will show some of that also. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, share screen.
Let me
Okay.
stop sharing.
Okay. Okay, so let's watch this book trailer.
I'm not hearing any sound.
Oh, okay, so I think there's a reason for that. Let me get this stopped. Restarted, and I think the problem was that I did not push a certain button when I went to share screen. And there it is, optimized for video clip. Okay, well, and it's not letting me optimize for video clip. Share sound. Well, it's let me share sound. Let me see if this share sound does enough for it. Just a second. Okay. Okay. You hear it now?
Yeah.
Very good.
Wow.
Very good.
I like the sound or the music. It's very
Yeah.
catchy.
That was
Yeah,
very good.
And admittedly, I've heard and seen that so many times that I do like hum and sing it quite a bit.
Very nice.
Well, one of the things that I think sometimes people think about, like Armageddon and Armageddon and the end of time and Revelation, is they think it's all about, Bible is all about revenge. It's all about an angry God coming after us for all of our mistakes and all the things that we've done wrong. And really, there are some people who have that vision of the end of time. That in the end of time, God's going to come after everybody who's done the wrong way or not believed in him. And he's going to do this massive revenge against everybody. And I think that what my book tries to show is that even though E.J. Conrad, who is this figure who wants to start Armageddon himself, he believes that it's all about revenge. It's all about God, punishing everything wrong. My book tries to show us that there's another way. There's another vision of what the Bible is all about. I mean, the end of time is all about. And that is love through listening. So that for me is my favorite part of the trailer. Love coming through listening. How much do we listen to each other today? Just doesn't see, it seems like it's an impossible thing sometimes for people to listen across all the divisions that we find in the world. But E.J. Conrad doesn't believe in listening. He believes in being right and enforcing what he believes is right. And he starts this attempt to be the initiative for Armageddon. So now maybe what would be good for the second trivia question. Armageddon is about an end of time thing, but E.J. Conrad connects it in the book to a certain mountain. What raging mountain? And this is for a winning a beautiful heart ornament, like you see in this picture. What raging mountain did he connect?
Wait, hold on. Are we having them scream it out, or are we having them type it out?
There's no place for us to type it out. I know the answer though.
But there's no chat. There should be a
No,
chat.
because you have control over the screens.
You should still see the chat, but okay, whatever. We can scream it out.
Oh, I see the
Yeah,
chat.
there's a
Not
chat.
St. Helens.
All right.
Hey, I'm a Washingtonian. If I don't know Mount St. Helens, please. Everyone in Washington knows where they were on May, was it 18th, 1980?
1980. Yep.
Mount St. Helens is correct. And the thing about this heart ornament that you have won is that it is made out of Mount St. Helens ash.
Ooh.
Cool. I have an emerald also made out of Mount St. Helens ash.
It's a symbol of love out of the essence of destruction.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
I actually took Amy on we called it the volcano tour. It was a 2-week camping trip. We went to the volcanoes of the Pacific Northwest, including down into Bend, Oregon, and had some wonderful beer, didn't we, Amy?
Yes, we did. We went
And we just looked at all of the volcanoes, and once you start looking at the volcanoes and the volcano activity away from volcanoes, you can't not see it. We went to the beach afterwards, and there was more volcanic activity that we could see on the cliffs. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think that's a picture to me that's very important. We know about destruction, but can something beautiful be made out of that? And I think that through love and listening, we can turn something that's a destructive time into something beautiful.
There was actually a recent documentary utilizing the St. Helens eruption to discuss how the activities in the book of Genesis actually could have occurred in the time frame as outlined in the book of Genesis, as opposed to a multi-millennial process, specifically as to the Grand Canyon, because they're looking at the scouring that took place from the St. Helens eruption, and it's mud flows, etc. It was an interesting documentary.
Well, one of the things I think is good about that, now, if you go up to Mount St. Helens today, you find life coming out of the destruction.
Mhm.
Life recovered. And that's a beautiful part of it too. But love and listening, that's really what it's about, I think.
So let's talk about, well, Keith, why don't you share with us a little bit about how your novel deals with that love and listening connection?
Yes, yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll read you a passage from the book. And just in the book, Drew Covington, who is a very conservative blogger and journalist, popular all across the country, falls in love with Shawna Forester, who is a liberal school teacher. A liberal school teacher who is the daughter of a liberal legislator who has died and been killed. And so falling in love with each other was not difficult, but learning to talk to each other and listen to each other was difficult, but it becomes a key for them. So I want to read this section where they are really working on this listening issue.
They also had faith in one another.
Pardon?
They also had faith in one another. There were many opportunities for that communication to go awry.
Yeah.
And it was because they did have faith in one another that they paused their misunderstanding to allow the other person to explain themselves. And,
Right.
and they were open to that explanation being fact as opposed to lying to get their way.
Right.
So I think faith plays a factor too.
Yes. Let me read this section. Drew could see Shawna's body was shaking with emotion. Listen, Drew. If we're going to have some kind of romance or whatever, do you think we should base it on never talking about anything we argue about? I didn't say that. But that's what you're trying to get us to do. That's no relationship. My beliefs, both religious and political, are important to me. And I guess yours are important to you. I don't want to just ignore them. I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe in being ecologically responsible. I believe gay people have a right to happiness and that God loves them as much as God loves straight people. If all this is going to cause problems for you, then now is the time I should know it. Oh God, Shawna, why now? Shawna folded her arms and glared at him. Because we're here together now, and the issue has come up now. Okay, if we must get into it now, everything you just said irritated me. A woman's right to choose? What about the baby's rights? I know. A fetus does not have status before the law, but I don't give a crap about that. It's a human life and has a right to live before God. If God gives life, then only God should take it away. And if God doesn't give life, then we are God and we are worse off than we ever thought. Oh, come on. Drew wasn't about to give her an opening. And this stuff about ecological responsibility, what makes you think I don't care about the ecology? A person would have to be totally ignorant not to feel that way. I just don't believe that Greenpeace or the Sierra Club or any of those other self-appointed saviors of the world, as you say, has a right to force their view on to us as to what is ecologically responsible and to destroy our businesses in the process. Oh, I see, Shawna interrupted. We're not God. And the Sierra Club isn't God. But don't get in the way of almighty big business. May his name be praised. Shawna threw her arms up above her head, a mock act of worship. If they screw up the climate, if they poison our drinking water, if they strip the planet of our oxygen-giving forest, so that the world becomes unlivable, then they must know what they are doing, so let us bow down. And, Drew continued as if she had not spoken a word, what right do you have to imply that I think God doesn't love gays? God loves everyone, but their behavior is a different matter. They just want the right to live and love, Drew. God, how arrogant of them. They want to live and love. It was Drew's whole body that was shaking now as he stared into Shawna's steely glare. Neither spoke for what seemed to Drew like an interminable period of time. Finally, he turned away. "Hey, man, that was fun," he said. "Why did we wait so long? We must do that again soon. If we are together, we will do it again." Shawna's response sent another shiver through Drew. He picked up his briefcase and rearranged some things on his desk as if their position mattered to him at all. Finally, he turned towards Shawna, but he avoided looking into her eyes. "Gotta go now." He took several steps toward the door, but then stopped and stared at the floor. "I'm a conservative, a man, and a believer in God, Shawna, and not necessarily in that order. I'm not a heartless beast." Okay, Shawna's voice was now much gentler. "I like that. And I'm not a baby killer. I'm just a woman. A woman who's seen too many other women suffer with unwanted children, children whose fathers have skipped off into irresponsibility. But I know you're not that way, and to tell the truth, I don't think that if it ever came down to it, I could have an abortion myself. I just want..." Wait, that's too long. Yours was short. Drew felt the smile return to his face. "That's okay. I'll owe you." Shawna returned his smile. He darted toward the door. "Be careful." The words came from a soft, trembling voice from behind him. With no energy to turn around, Drew nodded and sprinted toward the elevator.
Lovely scene.
Mm.
I love the banter between the two of them because they're opposites, obviously, conservative versus liberal, but they're also, to Tamara's point, they do have faith in each other and they are willing to listen and talk to each other, even if they don't necessarily agree. And I think that's why your book is so beautiful, because when we read a book, we are forced to sit there and it's just us in the book and we have to listen to what's on the pages. And it helps us to come sometimes full circle in terms of what we believe. So that was a beautiful reading, Keith. Thank you.
Very nice. Very nice done.
I loved Amos, Pastor Amos.
Yes.
We'll hear from Amos a little later.
I thought he was the perfect antidote to CJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk about love, Pastor Amos was filled with love.
Yes. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Tamara's like, I think Tamara should host this.
She's just
No.
burned it on.
I love it.
Obviously, I read the book.
We're gonna make
Yeah.
Tamara co-host.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my question too, Keith, is, do we have to be romantically in love with one another? Does there need to be love, I guess, in order to be able to listen to one another?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. You don't have to romantically be in love with each other, but caring for people should mean listening. Sometimes it's difficult because it's like we don't want to have any conflict in our life, no conflict. And so that's why we don't talk to the other person. We don't want any conflict. We just don't want to get all tense and everything. But sometimes you need to do that to really talk and listen. If you're just talking and you're not listening, you're not doing what you need to do to show love. At any rate, no, we don't have to be in love romantically, but love is an important thing, because without love, this world that we're living in is going to fly apart. And I remember the old Jackie DeShannon song, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love."
Mhm.
There's also a more recent song that my son Brandon and his wife Alicia are going to sing. They've sent this to us on the YouTube video. And it is one that very much talks about the love that is necessary to bring us together. So let me see if I can do the necessary things to get these things taken care of. I always have a trouble shifting these things in terms of getting things out of the way. Okay, I've got this thing coming down. I can't. Oh, there it is. Okay, I can get to it now.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Hear the children crying, hear the children crying, singing thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Saying, let's get together and feel alright. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let them all pass all their dirty remarks. There is one question I'd really like to ask. Is there a place for the hopeless sinner who's hurt all mankind just to save his home? Believe me, one love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. All around, give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. One more thing, let's get together to fight this holy Armageddon. So when the man comes, there will be no doom. Pity on those whose chances grow thinner, 'cause there ain't no hiding place from the Father of creation. Say one love, one about, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. I'm pleading to mankind. Thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright.
Ah, that's so beautiful. I could listen to them all the time.
Well, I may be a little biased, but I can too. Of course, they sang for my last book launch. They sang Woodstock and did a great job there. And they did a good job with this cover as well with Bob Marley's One Love. My son Brandon, our son Brandon, is a music therapist in a hospital in San Francisco area. His wife Alicia was a music therapist, but now she started her own company, wellness company, which has to do with more. And not she uses music in that capacity, but also just other things to be fully well. And they have a YouTube channel that they put their music up on called Rock Uncorked. And the significance of that title of their YouTube channel is that they're in wine country. And so it's Rock Uncorked. And so I just love their work. And if the other listeners would like to hear more of their music, then that's where you go to. You go to the YouTube channel Rock Uncorked. So I think people will really enjoy that a great deal.
Very cool.
Love it. So just a little share, like my son, he's starting to go to church now, which for a while he was like, I don't believe in God. And one of his favorite YouTubers asked, well, what is it about God that you don't believe? Is it because you can't see him? Which Preston said, yes, I can't see him, therefore I don't believe in him. And of course, my husband is not a Christian. He doesn't go to church, doesn't believe in God either. So I think that's part of the influence there. But this YouTuber told my son, hey, listen, do you believe in the wind? Because you can't see the wind, but you can certainly feel the wind, and you certainly know that the wind exists, right? To which point Preston was like, I guess you're kind of right. And so he's been exploring the world of Christianity and been going to church every Wednesday, actually, with one of our neighborhood kids. And I think it's a beautiful thing. But I think eventually he's going to learn about Armageddon, and he's going to learn, old version versus the new version of the Bible. And I'm kind of, I guess where I'm going with this is, how does your book, or how does the story pull in love versus all violence and divine revenge?
Yes, that's a good question, because a lot of people have that vision of the Bible, that it's divine revenge and get angry at you because you think bad thoughts sometimes, and
Maybe
so
it's
God
because
had
they
his-
focus too much on the book of Revelations and not on the books prior to the book of Revelations.
Yes, that's where they focus too much in the wrong place. But also, you talk about believing what you don't see. Hope is something that you don't see. And the Bible talks about that. That's faith is believing in things that are not seen. And so you don't see a reason for hope necessarily in the world. Right? If you look just at the things that are happening, you have to see beyond the scene. You have to see the hope that's beyond that. And that's very vital. Well, in this book, that is what I think I help to do with this book and this novel, is to see beyond all the violence, and to get beyond talking about divine revenge, and really talking more about hope, and about hope for the martyrs. You see, Revelation originally was not a book about 2,000 or 3,000 years from there, and some end of time nuclear war or whatever. It was simply about the Christians of that time were going through a really, really hard time. The Christians of that time had been through a lot of violence. Nero, the Roman emperor around the 90 AD, Nero had Christians covered in tar and then burned as human torches in his garden to give light to his guests walking through that garden. And that's what he did. He also was the one that, one of them, along with Domitian, another emperor, another Caesar that was later, threw the Christians to the lions as an entertainment in the Colosseum. So do we have those pictures, Amy?
We do. There's
Yeah.
one of the pictures.
Yeah, there's down those little mazes down below. That's where the lions went through, and they'd come out a door and they would attack the Christians, and people in the stands would be cheering, and they get killed and slaughtered. And you talk about a violent time. That's what it was. This is my son Brandon. Again, this is earlier time. This is a 2001, and he was out there looking at that and just very meditative about what that was about. So that's what the Christians of the time went through, in part, was that time of the tremendous violence against them, instituted by the Roman emperors. And also Peter and Paul, early Christian leaders, went through a lot of violence themselves. They were imprisoned in tiny Mamertine prison. This is a picture of that. And again, it's from that same trip we took. And very cramped little space. By the way, my wife had just asked Brandon to smile for the picture. And his response was, "Why would I smile? I'm in prison." But Peter and Paul were both in this prison at one time or another. And out of that time, Peter was crucified upside down. And Paul was beheaded. It was a very violent, bloody time for those Christians. So Revelation came along to just say that it wouldn't always be that way, that they would be vindicated, and that there would come a time, which is one of my favorite verses in all the Bible, in Revelation, and it's in Revelation. It talks about there will be a time when there will be no more mourning, no more crying, and no more pain. That was the vision of hope that that book brought to them. And in the end, it kind of reminds me of a book that I know that was written a few years ago called Love Wins. And I really think that title of that book exemplifies what is the true message of the Bible, that in the end, love wins. So, one of the things that I found is, for our next trivia contest, there's a sign outside my favorite coffee house that says, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy coffee, and that's the next best thing. And so for a coffee and a mug for that coffee, who was the author of the book Love Wins?
Am I eligible?
No, you're not eligible.
Nobody gets the answer. I just bought a 5-pound bag of the Cycle Rider 3 espresso today, along with, I think, 5 12-ounce bags of Cycle Rider 3 espresso today. I might be a little addicted to coffee.
I looked it up, so I know the answer.
You looked it up. So now, is that fair?
I know it's not fair, which is why I haven't blurted it out.
I don't think anybody knows the answer. So
Does anybody know the answer? Okay. Well, why don't you tell us the answer, Tamara?
It's Rob Hill.
nope.
Rob Bell. Rob Bell. That's
Rob
right.
Bell, I'm sorry, yes. I looked at it briefly.
She only gets the mug. I get the coffee.
There you go. There you go. You've got to be fair with this thing. So, okay. Rob Bell. And yeah, that is what it's all about. Love wins.
I love it.
Beautiful story.
I think we should go with another reading. And I think we should go straight to Amos. What do you think?
Thank you.
Well,
And if I may say so, his sermon in the jail, when you're talking about love, oh my goodness.
Price of admission. Worth the price of admission.
Yep.
So that is the scene I wanted to share. The idea here is to say that in the hardest of hard times, it's love that can see you through those times, and love wins. And in this scene, let me give you a little bit of the background for it. E.J. Conrad, who is this demagogue who is thinking he's going to wipe out all the evil through war, bringing about Armageddon, he has taken over the city of Longview, Washington. And people protested, and he threw those people in jail. And the people in jail include Shawna Forester and Drew Covington, the two characters we talked about earlier, as well as several other people, some ministers, a Ukrainian woman who had gone through some pretty tough times in Ukraine. So they're all together in that jail. And they're feeling pretty scared because not only have they been thrown into jail by this violent man, but they know that the United States government is considering a nuclear strike against the city because they need to wipe these guys out. And of course, that would hit them as well. So they are very anxious. And so in that context, one of the women ministers talks to Amos, who is a Black preacher, to see what he can do to lift them up. And he is a Black preacher. I am not a Black preacher, but I've listened to a lot of Black preaching. So I will attempt to replicate the cadence, but I'm not going to do it like a Black preacher would do it. I would not be able to do that. I don't have that ability. But here is the scene. After a seemingly interminable period, Maggie got up, walked over next to Natalia, and looked down the corridor at the other cell. Amos, those gates of heaven you spoke of, I think we all need you to take us there. Amos appeared uncertain. You're the one who can do it, Amos. I know you can. Do it for us. Amos looked at the others and then walked to the edge of the cell. He stood there for a moment, absorbed in thought. Then he turned toward the women's cell. Well, I can't take us there, Amos said, and he paused and shook his head. But I think I know someone who can. The Holy Spirit. Yes, sir. The Spirit might just take us there if we're open to it, you know. Amos began to prance around the cell. I know the Holy Spirit has done it before. He did it for Jacob one time. Yes, sir. He was heading back to this family's home in Haran. Truth be known, he was running away at the time, running away from his brother whom he had cheated out of his inheritance. I guess we're all running away from something, aren't we? People throughout both cells nodded. Brian, he's running from having killed his father, like that Greek Oedipus of old. Maggie, she's running from strict old parents who beat her down and never said a kind word to her in her life. Don't you deny it, Maggie Morris. I know it's true. Told me yourself you did. Maggie nodded in acknowledgement. And John's such a beautiful guy, but he's a running from so many in this world who say who he loves is ugly. Don't you believe it, Johnny boy? The Holy Spirit says it. Love ain't never ugly. Say it with me, brothers and sisters. Love ain't never ugly. The chorus rang out from both cells. Love ain't never ugly. And me, I'm a running from a childhood where if you didn't laugh, you'd just start crying and never be able to stop. Children you played with shot dead in the street before you, trying to fall asleep, while adults on the other side of paper-thin walls were yelling and cussing at each other. And the rats were crawling across your feet. Yes, sir. I guess we're all running from something. Well, Jacob, he was a running too. But like all of us who run, there came a time when he got tired of running. Amos drawled out the tired in the tradition of the great Black preachers, and he was finding his cadence. Yes, sir, he got tired of running, and he had to lay himself down. He had to lay himself down with nothing but a rock for a pillow. Now, that's getting pretty tired when you have nothing. No, you have to use a rock for a pillow. But that's what the Bible says, and I know it's true. The ministers gave a quick clap and said, that's right. They had been to the first African Episcopal church, and they knew their role. He lay himself down on that rock, and he had a dream. Yes, sir. It wasn't a dream like Martin Luther King's dream. It wasn't a good old American dream. No, sir. But it was a dream from God. Let me hear you say it, a dream from God. A dream from God. It was a dream from God, and in that dream, Jacob saw a ladder. Amos was now prancing through the cell like a rock star. It wasn't no painting ladder, and it wasn't no little attic ladder. No, even Brian and Drew were now getting into the rhythm of it. It was a ladder to heaven itself. Yes, Lord. It was a ladder reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were climbing up and down on it. And at the top was none other than the Lord himself, saying, I am the Lord, the God of your father and the God of God of Isaac and Jacob. Praise God. And at the top of that big old ladder, God had a message for Jacob. Preach it. He told Jacob, I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go. That's right. I am with you when those rats are crawling across your toes. Yes, sir. I am with you when those soldiers are beating on your head and trying to break your bones. That's right. I am with you when that you bad memories of childhood stab you in the heart and make you feel alone in this world. But you're not alone. Hear me, brothers and sisters. You're not alone. No, sir, not alone. Ryan stood and shouted the words. I am with you in this cell when the bombs are falling all around you, with the soldiers treating you like you're vermin, and the very threat of dropping a nuclear bomb to incinerate you. Amos shook as he spoke. I will be with you wherever you go in and however many pieces you go there. I will not leave you. I will not leave you. I will not. Everyone in both cells stood and applauded, but Amos was not done. And when Jacob heard this message from God, when Jacob took this message into his very soul, what does the Bible say happened then? What does it say, brothers and sisters? Well, I don't have my own Bible with me right now, but that don't matter to me because I have hidden his word away in my heart. It says, when Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place. I was not aware of it. That's right. In this place, brothers and sisters, in these jail cells, people lost to drugs are brought to these cells. Prostitutes who sell themselves because they don't know their value to God are brought to these cells. People who murder their brothers and sisters and even their own children are brought to these cells. Nobody wants to be here. Nobody wants to come here. But I'm telling you all now, the very Lord of heaven is in this place. And where the Lord is, I will not fear to go. Yes, yes. Once again, the cells broke out in applause. And when the word of God tells us that Jacob said something else, something so important that no one should ever forget it. He said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. This is the gate of heaven, brothers and sisters. Right here is the gate of heaven. You don't have to go into the sky to find it. No, sir. You don't have to die to find it. That's right. You don't have to be E.J. Conrad blowing up cities and acting like you're God to find it. No. It's here, right here in this jail. Whenever we love in his name, God opens those gates to us. Whenever we believe, when it's hard to believe, God opens those gates to us. Whenever we look at people with the very eyes of Jesus and we see our brothers and sisters, the very gates of heaven will open up to us. Can I have a witness? Amen. Jesus stands at those gates and he invites us in. That's right. He says, come in these gates, Natalia, you modern lady Godiva, because like old King David, when he brought in the Ark of the Covenant, you were naked to the glory of the Lord. There was laughing and cheering. He says, come in these gates, Drew, because even though Amos there don't like your politics, I am the Lord and I like your heart. Yes, sir. He says, come in these gates, Maggie Morris, because your mama and your daddy may have wanted to push you down, but I, the Lord, am here to lift you up. Amos leapt up on one of the cots and stretched out his arm toward Maggie. He quivered with emotion. He said, I had to make you a large woman to house that large heart. The word yes resounded throughout the cells. He says, don't let nobody in your way, sweetheart, because there ain't nobody who loves the Lord like you, and I have a special room prepared for you. That's right. The words came from everyone except Maggie, who was now sobbing and holding on to the bars with all her might to keep from falling to the floor. Amos leapt down next to Brian, took a firm hold on his shoulders, while his eyes seemed to glow with light. God says, come in these gates, Brian, because I don't see that sin in your heart anymore. I don't see it in my memory anymore. I don't see it in the archives of heaven anymore. I ask your Father who is with me in glory, and he didn't see it either, child. It ain't there, son. It's gone. Must be covered with the blood of Jesus, son, because I never don't see it. It's gone. Can I hear you say that, child? It's gone. Brian's words came in a near whisper as he fell in a trembling mass at Amos' feet. It's gone. Amos jumped back in the center of the cell and lifted his hands toward heaven. The Lord of heaven says, come in these gates, Amos Baldwin, because even though I know the corruption of your hearts, and even though I know you feel unworthy, still the women of your church, they pray for you, and those prayers, they are mighty. Amos fell to his knees, and tears streamed down to his face as he lifted his hands to heaven. Those prayers, they are mighty, and they have opened up those gates to you. Come in, Amos, for I am a God of grace, and you are my healed, forgiven child. The last words came almost as a whisper, but all knew that was okay because God was the primary listener. All became quiet. Brian sensed another presence in the cell complex. He instinctively looked toward this jail door, and there stood one of the guards, come in perhaps to check on the commotion. He now stood as a child stands when left outside the party. Brian had once known the feeling.
Ooh. Wow. I
Yeah.
think we should charge people to watch this recording. The price of admission. That was so beautiful. It gave me goosebumps, and it was you did a really, really good job, Keith, of writing that.
Thank you. Thank you. Like I say, I'm not a Black preacher, but I could envision the Black preachers I've heard preaching that way. And to me, it's about the love that's built. To me, that's so important.
And it looks like Jim has to duck out, and also our friend Patrick had to duck out too. So thank you for coming. And
Yeah.
we'll have this recording available later. So if you want to resume and watch the ending, that would be great. So yeah, I got to commend you. They always, as writers, we try to make our characters different and unique, but real, and when you listen to an audio tape, for example, you want to be able to distinguish your characters, and Amos certainly is one that stands out. So
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
yeah, that was beautiful. I just love stories that show people going through rough times and overcoming and finding that hope. So good job.
As well you should, because that is what happens in your books, right? In Snow in Vietnam, that's what happens. A story of a woman takes her children, her child, and her family, and escapes that very tough kind of situation. So maybe you might want to say a few words about that book.
Thank you. Yeah, so Snow in Vietnam, it was my debut novel that I wrote after my mom passed away. It was really God's calling to tell me to write her story, to honor her, and to dig into my heritage a little bit, right? And of course, that book is definitely about going through tough times. Talk about a mother who fights for her child in the middle of a war, in the middle of being abandoned from, by her husband. And when the communist regime takes over, my mother really just stepped up, right, and tried to fight for freedom, get us out of the country, and get me to America so I can get my medical care that I needed, because I had a hole in my heart. Was born with a CHD. So that is kind of the premise of Snow in Vietnam, and of course it's the first of the trilogy, which I can't believe that was, and Tamara knows this because it was like 3 o'clock in the morning or something when I wrote the end with Snow in Vietnam after 2 years of writing that novel. In 2019 it was published. Gosh, time flies.
Yeah, but you did such a masterful job with it.
And
really
you were
did.
there, Keith. You were on my
Yes.
speak team. That's how we
That's
met.
right. That's right. We met when I was helping you to kind of go through that and do some editing and reaction to it. And yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't know I was at the birth of such a good novel.
You helped birth my baby, my book baby, yes. And I knew nothing. So thank you so much.
Okay.
Were you all part of the writer's critique out of Issaquah?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Okay.
Which also Tamra was the one who told me about the cottage, the writer's cottage in Issaquah, because you were
Yes.
walking by that one day.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Pacific Northwest,
Yeah.
Writers Association. Well, in your book, it does talk about how love can take people through very hard times. And the love of that family made it through. And so for a copy of the book, Snow in Vietnam, we have our fourth trivia question. And that is, what chapter in the Bible is called the love chapter?
Carol, do you know?
Not the Song of Songs or the.
Yeah.
Is it King Solomon's?
No.
Nope. It's a writing of Paul, the Apostle Paul.
Is it to the Corinthians?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Liz got it.
It's to the Corinthians. You remember which chapter?
No, I don't remember which chapter, but I remember the verse that everyone has read at their wedding ceremony.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's close enough. Don't you, Amy? I think that's
Oh,
close enough.
absolutely. I think that's right on. Yeah.
So what is this chapter?
1 Corinthians 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The greatest of these is love. That's
Oh,
how it
yes,
goes.
yes.
Now, faith, hope, and let's see, faith, hope, and love abide these three, and the greatest of these is love.
That's the final sentence of your book.
Yes, that is correct. That is correct. It is the final sentence of the book.
Amy tried to correct my my review of your book, and I was like, no, this is First Corinthians.
I know, because my editorial mind was going, and I was like, this sentence doesn't sound right. It's not written right. So I tried to reword it.
Well, it's love is so much important to everybody, and it is what binds us together. But part of what people fight for too is that freedom, like they did in Vietnam. Fighting for freedom, and freedom is freedom from all the E.J. Conrads of the world who are trying to oppress you. Lots of people who want to take away that freedom. They want the freedom to take away your freedom, and we know that's not good. We want to be able to show that freedom to everybody. So I was thinking of a old TV series that I watched, and you guys may not be old enough to know this, but this is another trivia question. It's about a Western character. It's a TV show that I watched when I was a kid. It was about a Western character, and he was a legendary character of the Old West. And it was said in his theme song, he patched up the crack in the Liberty Bell. So for a
Daniel Boone?
that's close, not quite. So for this bell that is pictured there, who was this legendary character? Daniel Boone was a good guess, not quite Daniel Boone.
Well, it certainly wasn't Pecos Bill.
No, it was a character in the story. It was a Disney TV show, and the character wore a coonskin hat.
Oh, so, okay, crap, I can see it now. I can even, doggone it.
Hate it when your mind does that to you.
Yeah, I can even see the actor, but his name sadly is
His
escaping.
name was Fess Parker. The actor's name was Fess Parker.
Yeah, that's not helping me.
You guys are all younger than I am, and you can feel good because you're not old.
No, I remember, I've watched a lot of Disney.
Yeah.
At the tip of your tongue.
Yeah. Hang on, now I have to look it up.
Otherwise, she can't sleep tonight.
Davy Crockett.
Davy Crockett.
Ah,
Oh,
jeez.
Davy
yeah.
Crockett. Now,
He was a
let me say
handsome man
this.
too, wasn't he?
Well, Fess Parker was. I don't know about Davy
Yeah.
Crockett.
Oh, and you know what? He also played Daniel Boone.
That's probably true. That's probably true. He played several characters at that time. Now, in referring to that story, I was just saying we need somebody to patch up the crack in the Liberty Bell today. I don't necessarily advocate for all the Old West heroes who, because they took the land from the natives. And, some of those shows would kind of romanticize that. But we do need to patch up the crack in the Liberty Bell today. And to get back to having that liberty for everybody, not just for those who want to take it away from all the rest of the world.
Yeah, sadly, that time the liberty was only for white men.
Yeah.
Mm.
For white
And right now, Keith, you're out. Man, pardon the phrase.
That
is so finally my chance to be a minority. So no, yeah, that's true. That's what liberty was about for them. And today there are those people who want to reinstate that, where you get liberty for whiteness and maleness and conservativeness, and not for people in general, not for people. People who flee from violence, wherever that violence is, can teach us a lot in this country, whether it's fleeing from violence in Ukraine or fleeing from violence in Central America, or fleeing from violence in Vietnam. People who fled from violence can teach us a lot about the importance of liberty and the faith that it takes to go, faith and love it takes to get through hard times. So one last trivia question. For a copy of Sunrise in Saigon, which is by Patrick Greenwood, who was with us, what building is the Liberty Bell housed near in Philadelphia? Oh, you should know this one. What's the name of the building where the Liberty Bell is housed? Well, it's actually outside of it, but it was where the
I know where the
Declaration.
replica is housed. The replica is housed in Keith Madsen's.
That's right. The replica is housed in my house.
I
This
didn't realize
replica
it was going to be
is housed
civics
where
class
the-
today.
Where the Declaration of Independence was signed, folks.
Well, there's the bell.
This is the bell.
I love it.
Okay. Somebody needs to think of where the Declaration of Independence was held and the name of this hall.
Was it
Where-
We know that-
Constitution Hall?
It's a hall where
Independence Hall?
Independence Hall.
Oh, okay, okay.
Hey, who said that? Was that Carol?
Yes. Was that Carol who got that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
Independence Hall in Philadelphia. That's right. Okay. So sorry for the difficulty of those. I thought that would be one people could get. So, we've gone through a lot of things about my book, and I really appreciate you guys here being a part of it. But I don't know if we got other questions or comments on the book and things that you haven't had a chance to ask about or talk about.
How did you choose the book cover?
How did I choose the book cover? I had somebody who was really good at book covers. So that's how it came about. And you see in the picture, you see the nuclear cloud in the background. And
The
you see in
man doesn't look
foreground-
like Drew.
Well,
He doesn't have, the man doesn't have the gravitas of Drew. I
yeah,
pictured him a little bit older, a little bit broader in face, blonde.
yeah, yeah. And so, you do what you can.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's what the picture comes from. So, other questions?
How long did it take you to write this book, Keith?
Well, this, of course, as things noted, is the second edition.
So what's the difference between the first and
So,
second?
well, the first, there's not as much as you might think. Not as much as you might think. A lot of it is editing differences. The first edition was published in 2004. But in that time, in 2004, this book was talking about a coming fight between the extreme right wing rebelling against this country. And so when I started seeing what was happening in the present world, I said, I really need to refresh that book a little bit and get it out again. So I started rewriting the Bridles of Armageddon probably in 2018. And it took a couple of years for me to rewrite that. And I wanted it to include, by the time I finished it, January 6th.
Hmm.
And I wanted to include in there, what happened with that. And I wanted to, the original character of Natalia was actually, if I remember correctly, Bulgarian. And I changed her to Ukrainian because of what's happening with the Ukraine situation. So that's, there are really very few substantive changes between that first edition and the second. Those two would be the main ones.
Got it.
Took a long time to write, and getting some reactions from people, and
Yeah.
it came out well, and find the right editor that knows about books and can look it over and help me promote it, which I found in Amy Ann Lee.
Well, it's been a true joy and an honor. And thank you so much for entrusting me with your book, baby. I really appreciate it. And of course, we always look forward to what's next. So what is next?
Oh, boy. I don't know. One of the things I really enjoy writing, but like any writers, you guys who are writers know, you want your babies to have life, and you want them to thrive. So my characters, I want them to thrive. I want them to have life. So getting this book read is my next focus. So beyond that, there are other books I started. There's one called A Garden in Winter that I wrote way back even before that in 1985. But I'm going to, I've done some rewriting on it, which I might publish. I'm not sure. Right now, I just want to get what I've written read and out there.
So you have this one, and of course, you still have Searching for Eden. You've got your Sons and Daughters of Toussaint, and you have your anthology, right? Distant Flickers.
Distant Flickers. I have a story in Distant Flickers. That's right.
Yeah.
Which I'm very proud of the group that's put that together. Liz is, of course, was instrumental in getting that going and getting that out. And it's really a fine anthology, and it's gotten a lot of really nice reviews.
Yeah, it's been very well received.
Awesome. Do you guys have a cover or a copy of the book that you can show?
Yep.
I do. I'm not sure where it is right now. Where is my
Oh,
book?
there it is.
Oh, can you see it?
Yes, Distant Flickers.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Anybody else have any questions? All right.
Okay,
Well, that concludes our virtual book launch party. And wow, people were really good about typing, weren't they? No, just kidding. So we will go ahead and wrap this up. We will provide a copy of this video. I'll post it on YouTube and send out the link. We'll also follow up with the winners for the trivia and get those prizes sent out ASAP.
you have all the addresses, Amy, or the information for where to send these.
I will send an email and ask for those addresses to make sure we have them correct.
Make sure we get them correct. We want to get those out to the right addresses.
Absolutely. And so any final words, thoughts?
Thanks for coming. I know we had several people that wanted to come and had last minute conflicts. So that happens.
That happens, yes, but they can watch the replay and then they can miss out on all the fun stuff that we had and all the prizes that we were giving out. All right, well, have a great rest of the night, rest of the weekend, and I don't know who's voting for the Eagles and who's voting for anybody watching
Chiefs.
football. You're doing
Chiefs.
Chiefs? Okay,
Chiefs.
Eagles, let's go Eagles.
Okay.
Gotta go for the birds. All right. Well, have a good night,
Okay.
everyone. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, Amy, thanks a lot.
You're very welcome. I'm going to stop recording.
Okay. Okay.